Assalamu alaikum, this is Shiraz Ahmed from Economic Security Unit here at Islamabad Policy Research Institute. Today we have fortune to have Dr. Steve Bremen, who is a renowned political scientist and former professor at Princeton University, USA. Hello Dr. Steve, how are you?
Good afternoon, Sharon. I'm very well, thank you.
How's your tour going?
It has been awesome.
Perfect. Today I'm going to ask three important questions here. So leading to my first question is, what cracks have emerged in the US-led order?
A number, some deeper than others, and an answer kind of depends on where you want to start. So I would go back as far as the early 1970s with Nixon's closure of the gold window. You'll understand at one point the United States guaranteed an exchange of US dollars for gold. That became untenable, according to the Nixon administration in the early 1970s, and so it changed. We once had fixed monetary exchange rates, not floating. This was a consequence of the establishment of the international financial institutions after the end of the Second World War. So I'm talking about the World Bank and the IMF and the like. Floating exchange rates came about the middle 1970s. 73, 79, there were two oil crises, both kind of very difficult times for countries that relied heavily on Mideast oil, as the United States did at the time. It no longer does. Trying to move quickly here into the preceding decades, one might argue that the Reagan administration sort of shored up American hegemony. That may or may not be true, but come the 1990s, we're into the era of globalization. Once again, the United States is leading with the establishment of various sorts of new international financial institutions. You'll recall the creation of the World Trade Organization in 1999. There were a number of regional trade agreements, NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico, that again, you could argue sort of shored up the system. Since then, given the seemingly never-ending war on terror, the advance and accelerating peril of climate change, the threat of global pandemics, the disregard for international law and human rights on the part of a number of important actors on the world stage, the rise of alternative non-Western groupings like that put together by South Africa and Brazil and Russia and China as a kind of direct challenge to American hegemony and the American-led order. The problematic role that the dollar plays today as a reserve currency, not as strong as it once was. I don't see it being replaced by the euro or the yuan anytime soon, but again, it's certainly a crack. And then finally, presently, with the current administration in Washington doing its best to increase and expand those cracks.
And by speaking of China, which you talked about China, how would you characterize or see the nature of US-China competition?
Yeah, it's tricky because there are, as you know, ideological elements, there are economic competitive elements, and various sorts of technological races, and then there's the question of Taiwan. The United States has essentially been the guarantor of Taiwanese security since the creation of the People's Republic of China in 1949, and that has been, as you know, I mean, it's almost led to war on numerous occasions, including nuclear war in the 1950s, very scary situations. Recently, the People's Republic has said it's only a matter of time before we reunite Taiwan with the mainland. They see the reintegration of Hong Kong and the disappearance of the British as a nice precedent for what would happen in Taiwan, but that remains very tense. There are almost daily kinds of very close encounters between warships and aircraft. So, and now, of course, there's additional technological races for space exploration. Chinese just landed something on the far side of the moon,
Yes.
which is the first time that has ever happened. AI is, of course, the next big thing, and China and United States are sprinting as quickly as they can, so as to be out ahead in that race. Different models. The American model is almost purely laissez-faire. It's just, these isolated geniuses able to raise enormous sums of money and then devise these large language models and all the rest they've come up with in the last few years. And the Chinese model, of course, is state pushed and quite different. But there, if you ask where do we stand in that race, I'd say neck and neck on AI between the People's Republic and the U.S.
Yeah, and does the U.S. Indo-Pacific military posture suggest a long-term deterrence strategy or preparation for limited conflicts?
The United States probably rightfully sees itself as a Pacific power, right? That it has business in the larger area of the Pacific Ocean, which seems reasonable. Long coast, Hawaiian Islands, Guam, Diego Garcia, a number of other constituencies much closer to China than to the United States. Of course, the not so much sudden, the steady and extraordinary rise of China from essentially a kind of destitute third world country to now the factory of the world, and with extraordinary new cities. Along with that has come, unsurprisingly, a Chinese desire to flex its muscles, to ensure its own interest. And thus it's been creating some tensions with its neighbors. So the Vietnamese are not especially happy with China these days. Filipinos, most certainly not, right? There's argument over these various islands that are in the South China Sea and nearby environs that, again, is a daily source of tension. And unsurprisingly, even Vietnam, of all places, has turned to the United States for, if not formal alliance. The U.S. does have treaty agreements with the Philippines, not with Vietnam, but there have been port visits by U.S. warships to Vietnam for the first time since, in 50 years. And again, real concern by China's neighbors as to its future plans. So to finally get around to answering your question, it's been a long-term commitment for the United States in the Pacific. It has the Quad, right, of Australia, Japan, Korea, and the U.S. that's clearly aimed at containing China. It made a nuclear submarine deal with the Australians. Yes. Trump might undo it, but again, with the idea that you're going to arm your allies in the region so as to put up this resistance to any possible Chinese expansionism. Tensions are rather high. And then now layer on top of that, I'm sort of moving away a little bit from the security realm here and talk about ongoing disputes over trade and tariffs that are real sources of tension on both sides. What is the Chinese curse? May you live in interesting times.
Yeah. So, sir, moving toward the last question, how does the U.S. reconcile its global military commitments with rising domestic fatigue and political polarization?
Yes, that remains an open question. We are literally right in the middle of that. In the early 2000s, Chalmers Johnson, a political scientist from UC San Diego, wrote a book called The Empire of Bases, in which he explored the 800 or so U.S. military facilities spread around the world. China does not have a single military facility outside of China, and the United States has 800 of them. that has led in recent decades, and especially in the last 5 years or so, to real fatigue among a significant sector of the American public, and including elites and politicians, such that one could see this fatigue as one of the causes of the Trump administration. Right, America first is one of his favorite slogans. Right, we shouldn't worry about policing the world or continuing this U.S.-led world order. We need to kind of retreat back to the homeland and focus on ourselves and cut our aid to folks that we had once generously shared it with, and kind of intentionally reduce the U.S. role in the world. So there is this struggle between what you might call isolationists and what they call, for them it's a dirty word, globalists.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really great to have these insights from you, and I'm really hoping to welcome you back here soon.
Thank you, Sharad, and I look forward to being back